You already know the word would. You've been using it for years. But I want to show you 4 sentences. Would you like some coffee? I would help if I had more time. When I was young, I would walk to school every day. She said she would call me back. Same word, 4 completely different jobs. And if you learned English from a textbook, there's a good chance you only learned one of them well, and you've been missing the other 3. Here's what most textbooks teach you. Would is for conditionals. I would do it if I could. That's one use. But native speakers use would 4 different ways every single day, and they switch between them without thinking. By the end of this video, you will too. Stay with me through all 4. Because the one that trips up most intermediate speakers is actually the 3rd one, and it's the one your textbook almost certainly skipped. The first use is the one you probably know. Would makes requests and offers sound polite and indirect. Would you mind closing the door? Is politer than close the door. Would you like some help? Is softer than do you want help? Here's what's important. Would creates distance. Not emotional distance, social distance. It signals that you're giving the other person a choice. You're not demanding, you're offering. That's why it appears in formal situations. Job interviews, business emails, speaking to someone you don't know well, or when you want to sound respectful. Would it be possible to reschedule our meeting? Would you be able to send me that file? These sentences use would not because something is hypothetical, but because the speaker wants to sound polite rather than direct. Here's a quick test. Can you replace would with can or do you want? If yes, and the meaning stays the same but sounds less polite, that's the first use. Politeness, indirect requests, and offers. The second use is the one your textbook taught you. Would in conditional sentences, describing something hypothetical, something that isn't real right now. I would travel more if I had the money. I don't have the money, so this is hypothetical. She would come if she were invited. She hasn't been invited. The key here, would, signals that you're in an imaginary situation, not the real world, a parallel version of it. This is why would pairs with if so often. If X were true, I would do Y. The if introduces the imaginary condition. Would tells you the result lives in that imaginary space too. Notice, this would is about the present or future, things that aren't happening now. It doesn't describe the past. The test for this one, is the situation imaginary or contrary to what's actually true? Then it's used to. If this is already clarifying something for you, subscribe. Every video on this channel is one specific thing that will make your English sound more natural. Now let's get to the 2 uses most learners never learn. This next one is the use your textbook probably skipped, and the one that makes the biggest difference in how natural your spoken English sounds. Would can describe something that happened regularly in the past, a habit, a repeated action. When I was a child, I would walk to school every morning. Every summer, we would visit my grandmother. In college, he would study at the library until midnight. This use is completely different from the conditional. There's no imaginary situation. This actually happened over and over in the past. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that what used to is for? And yes, used to works here too. I used to walk to school, but would sounds more natural in storytelling. Native speakers use would to set a scene from the past, to bring you into a memory. Used to states a fact. Would narrates. One important rule, this habitual would only works with action verbs, verbs that describe doing something. You cannot use it with stative verbs, which describe states or conditions. Wrong, I would know the answer. That should be I used to know. Wrong, she would have a dog. That should be she used to have a dog. For states, you need used to. For repeated past actions, would works beautifully. This is the use that separates intermediate English from advanced English. When you start using habitual would in conversation, your storytelling immediately sounds more native. Quick question before we get to the fourth use. Which of these would uses do you find most confusing? Drop an example sentence in the comments. I'll tell you if you used it correctly. The fourth use is more mechanical, but you'll notice it everywhere once you see it. In English, when you report what someone said in the past, verbs shift backward in time. Will becomes would. Direct speech, I will call you tomorrow. That's what she said in the moment. Reported speech, she said she would call me tomorrow. That's you reporting it later. Another example, direct, we will finish the project by Friday. Reported, they said they would finish the project by Friday. The rule is mechanical. If someone said will and you're reporting it afterward, you use would. The tense shifts back because the speech act happened in the past. This is why you'll hear would constantly in news reporting and formal writing. The minister said the government would introduce new legislation. The company announced it would raise salaries. Whenever you see said would or announced would, that's reported speech. Use four uses. Now, let's see if you can tell them apart in real time. Here are 4 sentences. Before you hear the answer, pause for a second and decide which use it is. Would you mind turning down the music? That's use 1. A polite request. Would you mind is one of the most common ways English speakers soften a direct request. She said she would be late. That's use 4, reported speech. Someone originally said, I will be late. And this sentence reports it. In the evenings, he would sit by the window and read. That's use 3. Habitual past. A repeated action from the past, narrated as a memory. I would travel to Japan if I had more vacation time. That's use 2. Hypothetical conditional. An imaginary situation with a conditional result. 4 uses, 1 word. A quick summary to remember them. Use 1. Would plus a request or offer means politeness. Use 2. Would plus if means something hypothetical. Use 3. Would plus a past repeated action means storytelling from memory. Use 4. Said plus would means reported speech. The more you practice noticing which would you're hearing, the faster they'll become automatic. And the moment you start using all 4, not just the conditional, your English will sound noticeably more natural to the people around you. If this video gave you one thing that changes how you use English, share it, especially with a friend who's learning. This channel covers exactly these kinds of gaps. The things your class taught you, but not completely. Subscribe and you'll get the next one when it's ready. And I'll see you in the comments.